Hello and welcome to Janet's Craft Corner. Today we're going to make our Spindle birdhouse set. For this set you need paint, scrapbook paper, and your normal supplies. See a list in the description of this video. Now let's get started. You're going to choose 2 scrapbook papers. You're going to take and turn your scrapbook paper over so that you can mark on the back the way you want it to appear. And you remember that you've got borders that go on the top and the bottom, so you don't have to cut all the way out to the edges on those. So you're going to trace around your piece, and then you are going to cut basically just barely inside the line on the straight up and on these side pieces here on what would be equivalent of these 2 edges, and then further in on these edges. You want to go slightly inside your pencil marks on those first 2 edges because your pencil mark is technically outside it. We're going to we can sand off a little bit if we need to, but let's not have to a whole bunch. And then the rest of it you can come about 1/4 inch in, because that is going to be underneath where the border pieces are. Okay, so we're going to turn that over. We're going to do like this. And then again, on the outside edges, you're just barely going to cut inside of it on the straight sides. And then on the upper edges, you're going to cut about 1/4 inch in. Okay, so then once you have those 2 cut, you're going to take and you're going to apply Mod Podge to that top section where you want the paper to go. There are 2 ways to do Mod Podge. If you're using cardstock, it doesn't really matter which way you do at all. If, however, you are using thinner paper, I strongly recommend the heat method, because your paper will not buckle and wrinkle. But with this method, you're going to paint it on wet. While it's still wet, you're going to put your piece on and get it to lay exactly where you want it. Here, I'll show you again so you can see how much it gets. I mean, I'm just putting a regular thin coat on. It's not very thick. Just make sure it's in the right place and press it down. I always run my fingers around the outer edges of it, so I get the edge all the way down so that it sticks as it dries. And so then now we're going to put our Mod Podge away. We're going to start our paint process. And as always, we're going to start with white. This one has quite a bit of white because all your bases are white, all these little pieces are white, and then the 2 spindles are white. And you may want an X-Acto knife or something on these 2 pieces if you don't use the sponge method on them. And you want to just come a little bit above where you need to be on the up here at the top, just so that you are painted up underneath the edge of that piece, but you don't have to be any higher than that. Just make sure you're going all the way out to your edges. And the other thing you can do to make it look more rustic is, if you'll notice, as I do 1 coat, I may leave it at 1 coat because it kind of shows through. Can you tell that from? Okay, there. See how it kind of shows through when you just do 1, so you don't have to really do a lot of it. If you do that, you don't have to do a lot of sanding. But you do have to kind of worry about where your brush strokes are going if that's what you're doing, because your brush strokes will still show. This may actually be a piece where we don't have to do 2 coats of white. One of the things that I kind of hate is doing multiple coats of white. Okay, lay those aside, and then all of these pieces up here are white. Okay, so then next thing I'm gonna do is my yellow. And for me, that is the big house. Kind of depends on where you put your papers, which color you want your top and your edges to be. It's definitely going to need a second coat. Your pink is just our little bird's wing. Okay, so there's my that, and then I'm going to go back and do a second coat on my yellow. Okay, and now let's do our blue, and for me that's the bird, and it's also going to be the trim for the second of the smaller of the two spindle birdhouses. And then our final paint color is the black for the center holes on our birdhouses. Okay, I'm to the point where I need to start doing edging. To keep the edges looking clean, I go back and touch them up with black. I either use a paintbrush or in this case I'm using a black acrylic marker. And while I've got my black marker out, I'm also going to put the eye on my bird. And again, you can use a paintbrush or you can use a marker like I'm doing. I reference the markers in my description so you can see which kinds exactly that I'm using. And then I'm going to finish up trimming my smaller pieces. Okay, you've got sandpaper along your edges. You'll notice that your paper probably goes further out than your thing. You take your sandpaper and you rub it across your edges, coming from the front towards the back. And then if you bring it up a little further towards the front, you can kind of rough up that edge so it looks a little less perfect, a little more worn. And then the microfiber cloth helps a lot because it takes up your dust, keeps your dust from being there. But if you don't have one, that's not a big deal. And that little corner right there is kind of hard. One right here. So I'm kind of using my X-Acto knife to get up in there and get that piece out of there. But I always go across it one time or one pass to get my paper to break there, and then I worry about roughing my edges. And then see your edge looks, where am I trying? There, see how kind of dirty my edge looks? That creates that edge so that it kind of looks weathered. I'm using what's called 180 grit. It's about mid grit.
Yeah.
And then you can also just use it, kind of go up and down across your spindle to roughen it up a little bit more. But then don't forget you've got pieces that are going over the top of this spindle that need to be done too. I think you're gonna have to wait till you glue them on because I can't put them in my hand and do them. Okay, so now it's time to start gluing. And I'm actually going to glue my spindle together and come back and sand it a little bit for distressing of those top pieces. And then I'll come back and do everything else. There are 3 pieces that go on your spindle. One at the top, one kind of 3/4 the way down, and one at the bottom. The one at the bottom, I suggest you sit it in your base before you do it to make sure that it's not going to go too low. Your base is 2 pieces thick, so make sure you've glued it together before you sit it in there so that you can get a really good idea of how far deep it goes into that spindle. Okay, and then on the fronts, you're just going to have to guess where your circles belong.
Okay.
Because, you no longer have the little marking. And then I am going to take my white and give myself a little bit of accent on my birdie's eyes and on his wing. I really hate people who can get a nice, pretty line around things. I can't do it anymore with a brush or with a pen or anything else for that matter. And then we're done. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to see more tutorials.